Hello, guys, and welcome back to What If episode 8. And today we're talking about what if the Avengers assembled in 1602. Now, this episode is the penultimate episode, it kind of leads directly into the finale. And I gotta say, on the whole, it was a very, very entertaining, interesting episode to watch. It was set in medieval times, not medieval times, that's complete and utter rubbish. Apologies. It's set in Elizabethan times, so 1602, round the time that Shakespeare wrote Macbeth, Romeo and Juliet, that kind of thing. It opens in the Globe Theatre, which I thought was really, really cool. Um, and Loki's doing a performance, and Hela appears to be queen. Thor is there, and then all of a sudden a rift opens up and takes Hela away, despite Captain Carter trying to save them. Now, this directly leads on from what we saw at the end of the Captain Carter episode, in which she was dragged into a portal and taken to some medieval place with a past Nick Fury and Wanda. I don't know. It was a little bit confusing, and once again, I was really, really weirded out by the fact that how are these people here in this time period? But then I think they explained it. I think they did. But I'm still kind of a little bit confused with the whole situation. But regardless, it was a very, very good episode. The opening was very gripping, and then we went on a little bit of a journey. I've seen some people complain about Captain Carter's presence in this series and how she's very much the face of What If, and some people aren't happy with that. I don't personally have a problem with it. I think Captain Carter is one of the better characters that they've come out with, and she feels more fully formed than some of the other characters that they've got. But I do understand that she is kind of taking over in the fact that she's been in both finales now. She's been in 5 episodes out of 18. And I don't know, it does feel like she's getting more airtime than some of the other interesting characters. I've also watched the finale, so I'll hold back my thoughts and feelings on the finale for tomorrow's video. But this episode did handle the story and the subject very, very well, I thought. Captain Carter's obviously been brought here. I'm not sure why Wanda brought her here. Wanda's got some new magical powers as well. She's able to open up multiversal rifts, which again, I've seen people complain about because they're like, oh, well, what Wanda couldn't do that in Multiverse of Madness, and that was literally the whole plot. Why could you do it here? Well, my answer to that is probably it's different. It's a different universe, so she probably has different powers. You don't see the same people in every universe having the exact same powers. I mean, Strange Supreme is literally the strongest version of Doctor Strange, and he could do things that Doctor Strange in the MCU can't. So I think that's a very invalid argument. The whole sort of like, oh, it just renders Multiverse of Madness completely pointless. No, no, it doesn't, because the emotional pull of that episode is that she can't take her kids from another universe because they're not her kids. They're someone else's kids technically. So, because that's the whole emotional crux of that movie. Multiverse of Madness was a disappointment on many levels, but the one thing it did disappoint in with Wanda's storyline surrounding the grief that she felt from WandaVision. That was one of the many strengths of that film, but the rest of it was a little bit of a disappointment at times. So, what happened was Peggy Carter had to go on the run, and Thor, who's now king, ordered basically her execution because she wasn't doing anything to help with the green rifts in the sky. It was really weird to see some of these characters in sort of Tudor England kind of setting, that kind of vibe. Especially because we know their counterparts. I think Happy Hogan was there, Wanda was there, Nick Fury, Thor, Loki, and then some other characters which I'll get into a little bit later. But on the way, on the run, she actually bumped into the Watcher. The Watcher was talking, and she turned around and went, "You know, I can hear you, right?" And I thought that was actually really, really cool because it kind of ties in with my theory that the Watcher can only be heard by people that he's met. And obviously, he doesn't meet many people, so obviously, he can't be heard that often. But Captain Carter was literally talking to him, and it was really, really interesting to see. He basically offered to take her back to her own time because she wasn't meant to be there. And he also gave a very chilling monologue about how universes are meant to die. And I think this really is a great idea and a great way of explaining things because I've seen some other TV shows like there's an episode of Sarah Jane Adventures where Sarah Jane disappears and she's replaced by a woman called Andrea Yates. And essentially that episode deals with the fact that when they were children, Andrea and Sarah were best friends, but unfortunately Andrea died in a tragic accident. But this person is trying to change history, and in doing so, saves Andrea and lets Sarah Jane die. So that's why she disappears. And there's one character that can remember Sarah Jane, and it's because she has like this magic device. And she goes up to Andrea Yates and says that you're meant to die. You were meant to die. And Andrea turns around and goes, "Meant to die? Who says I'm meant to die?" And it's that interesting thing of like how much of history is predetermined and how much of it is up to free will. Because tragic situations like someone dying or a universe being destroyed, surely that can't be premeditated. Surely that can't be set in stone. And I think that's something that the Watcher was trying to bring to the attention of Captain Carter and saying, look, these universes, you can save them, but they're going to die eventually. And you're just prolonging the inevitable, that kind of thing. So we got to meet Steve Rogers in this universe, as well as Scott Lang and Bucky. They are basically like the Merry Men. What's his name? Steve Rogers is Rogers Hood, which was quite funny. And they basically steal stuff from Loki's carriage. And I found this really interesting because I wasn't expecting these characters to make an appearance in the episode. Like I said, I wasn't really sure how the vibe was working with the 1602 characters and it just wasn't making sense to me, but it was explained kind of later on. I don't know. There was a lot of talk about Steve and Peggy, and I feel like Steve and Peggy are a couple that this is now the second time in one series of What If that they've dealt with the whole sort of like, oh, I love you, oh, but you're not my person, etc., etc., etc. They did it in Captain Carter's episode, and they did it kind of here, but I think this one had a little bit more of an emotional pull because they'd both lost their respective Steve and Peggy. So it wasn't as it hit a lot harder because they'd both lost each other and have both found each other in a different universe. Unfortunately, this did not last long because Happy Hogan and the Peeps, they kind of attacked and apprehended Peggy, which I thought was an interesting scene. There was like a fire guy that was like spreading fire. It was a weird scene, I gotta say, but I did enjoy it and I thought it was very, very entertaining. However, we then landed with Peggy in a prison cell, and I don't know. I struggled to understand what the point of this episode was. Like I've understood why each of the previous episodes were, but like this episode just did not work in the sense of like it was very entertaining to watch, but the plot made no sense because there are these rifts that are opening up and sucking people in and destroying the world basically, but we never got any explanation as to why they were happening or what was going on. Like even by the end of the episode I was still sort of like, so what were those rifts about? What was happening? Unless wait, okay, actually, I might have an answer for that now I've thought about the episode. So I'll come to that a little bit later. Um, So Peggy manages to break out of prison. She has another conversation with the Watcher, which again, I love the Watcher. The Watcher is actually probably the best character that's come out of What If. He's a very, very cool character. I just like his design. He's very regal and very sort of like overlordy, but in a sort of passive sense. And he offers to take Peggy home once more, but it doesn't land with her, and she's like, no, I'm going to save this universe. So she manages to free Bruce Banner from the prison cell, and he turns into Hulk. That was quite cool. They meet up with Tony Stark. Tony Stark's designed this box thing that's going to identify who the what do they call him? The Forerunner. Wanda said that there's a Forerunner that's going to save the world or something along those lines, and it was very interesting because she was okay. So this is kind of where it makes sense a little bit, in the sense that, oh my god, the plot of this episode was really, really confusing, and I'm just trying to make sense of it for you guys. The Watcher and Captain Carter had a conversation. They were basically like, oh, 21st century Earth and 16th century Earth are being fused together. So that explains why all of these MCU characters are in not medieval, Elizabethan England. That makes sense. Okay, cool, cool, cool. So now we're all caught up. So we end up getting a really, really cool fight scene in the court, like the courtroom of like King Thor. And honestly, it was really, really nice. It was really cool to watch. There was some nice moments, like Scott Lang somehow had his ant armor. That was the biggest clue to me, that I was like, wait, what? What's going on here? Because I think I'd missed the part where they were like, they made it clear that these were all the people from like the MCU that had traveled back in time and been displaced here. That was what was really mind-bogglingly confusing for me. I missed that bit, and it's only just made sense to me now. So this, oh my god. So this, again, the title of this episode was very, very wrong. But this episode was essentially, what if Captain America hit the time stone or something like that? Because they managed to activate the device. Captain Carter and Thor had a massive battle, and it was quite cool. And then what happened was they managed to get the stone for the device that Tony had made, and they booted it up, and it revealed that Steve Rogers was the Forerunner. And then he starts to remember, oh, that there was a battle, and this is when we get like a little flashback to Infinity War, where he's attacking Thanos and he hits the time stone, and it sends everyone back into 1602, which makes sense. That was very confusing to me at the time. I was like, oh, so was it just Steve? And then when like the light was sending everyone back, everyone disappeared, and I was like, wait, where's everyone gone? I'm so confused. What has happened? Like, actually, what's happened? I'm so baffled, because none of this makes sense. But it does make sense now, so that's good. So the episode ended. Captain Carter was kind of stuck, but then Doctor Strange, well, Strange Supreme turned up and was like, yo, I need your help with something. And that's basically where the episode ended. I thought it was a good episode. I was very, very happy. Let's talk scores. So, scores on the door, scores on the door. I'm going to give it 85. Because it was a very, very entertaining episode. The plot confused me. I did not understand the whole 21st century, 16th century fusing until, like, I was just thinking about it then. I thought it was kind of cool to see how each of the characters were different in this time period. Wanda was quite cool to see again. That was nice. Thor, I'm maintaining the fact that I think Thor's just a dickhead. I don't like him. And yeah, I don't like him that much. Happy was weird in this episode. Very, very strange. Didn't fully vibe with how they portrayed his character. And I was also really confused why he turned into Purple Hulk as well. That was another confusing one, because like, is this the same universe where he saves Christmas? and then they go on to Infinity War. This is what I mean. I was a little bit confused and I didn't fully understand what was going on. There were a couple of aspects where I was like, oh, I feel like they've just shoved that in for the sake of, ooh, cameo, cool. But yeah, on the whole, good episode, 85%. Thank you guys very, very much for watching. We've got the finale tomorrow, and then we've got The Traitors Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then back to Percy Jackson on the Sunday, I think. So thank you guys very, very much for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Keep on ranting. Bye now.